$1 trillion or 10,000 combat power in the Dragon Ball world. Which would you choose? Right now, before me and my younger brother, two choices are laid out. Having crossed over from Blue Star to this parallel world, my past life naturally included watching the Dragon Ball anime. 10,000 combat power, not enough to rule the entire galaxy, but becoming the master of the solar system would be no problem. So I didn't hesitate and planned to choose the 10,000 combat power. Just as I raised my hand to tap the technology or in front of me, my parents both moved violently and pinned me to the ground, shouting loudly, "Cheng, you choose first." Because from childhood, my parents had always favored my younger brother Cheng, letting him choose first in everything. My younger brother Cheng sneered, raised his finger to tap the technology and said, "Of course I'm choosing combat power. The apocalypse is coming soon. Even if I had more money, there'd be nowhere to spend it. Though I still don't know what kind of world this Dragon Ball is. But it can't be bad. As for my dear big brother, you take your $1 trillion and obediently go feed the monsters." As my younger brother Cheng tapped the technology his figure vanished in a flash of blue light, while I was left holding a bank card with $1 trillion. I slunk out of the house. The apocalypse was coming in a month. Even though I lost the 10,000 combat power, I had to find a way to survive. I bought an abandoned prison and converted it into a shelter, then spent a huge sum to stockpile enough supplies to last 50 years. The latest laser weapons developed by Dragon Country and some mobile suits were also stored in the warehouse. After spending all of my $1 billion, I started a retirement life inside the shelter. I originally thought my little brother, who had gained 10,000 combat power, must have become the ruler of Earth by now. But unexpectedly, 3 years later, my brother, missing one arm, dragged our mother's corpse and knocked on the shelter door. After a long hesitation, I opened the shelter and let him in. But after he had a full meal, he pulled out a gun and shot me dead. Just before dying, I heard Cheng's dark, twisted voice. "What bullshit Dragon Ball world? It's a scam." When I opened my eyes again, I was standing at the same choice site from 3 years ago. It was the same familiar scene. My parents held me down and let my brother choose first. Cheng, with a grim face, hesitated not at all, and pressed the option for $1 trillion. He took the bank card and led our parents out of the shabby apartment, muttering incessantly, "What 10,000 combat power? It's a scam. Starting today, I'm the richest man in the world." I stood there stunned, unable to figure out how my brother, who chose 10,000 combat power in the previous life, ended up like this. After a moment's hesitation, I pressed the selection box. Ding! Host has chosen 10,000 Dragon Ball combat power. Unlockable only after completing 3 prerequisite tasks. Host's current combat power, 5 points. Teleportation begins. With a flash of blue light, I was transported to the Dragon Ball world, which I had seen countless times on Blue Star in my past life. At the same time, the 3 prerequisite tasks appeared in my mind. Task 1. Bring the protagonist Son Goku and Bulma together as a couple. Task 2. Prevent the tragedy of future Son Gohan. Task 3. Help Lord Frieza grow 10 centimeters taller. The moment I saw the tasks, I laughed. Weren't these the top 3 unfinished wishes from the Dragon Ball forums in my past life? For someone unfamiliar with the Dragon Ball plot, these tasks would be completely impossible. No wonder Cheng from the previous life died as a weakling with a gun, barely a 5 in combat power. But after a little thought, I found a solution. First, I just needed to prevent little Goku from meeting Chi-Chi. With the experiences Bulma and little Goku had while searching for the Dragon Balls, it would naturally lead to them marrying and having children. I immediately ordered several hundred sets of Mist Song's photo albums for Master Roshi and became close friends with him. Then I asked him to go to Fire Mountain and put out the blaze. That way, Goku and Bulma would skip the Fire Mountain arc entirely. Sure enough, after my manipulations, the two eventually married and had son Goten. The first task was completed easily. The system then teleported me to the future timeline. The task in this timeline was even simpler. As the saying goes, if Gohan doesn't study, after Cell cries, Bu cries. This scion with the highest talent in history, if he devoted himself fully to training, even Beerus the Destroyer would be beaten into a pulp. So I directly applied to become Son Gohan's teacher. After some intimidation and threats, young Gohan successfully hated studying and had to go back to follow his father Goku to become a martial artist. Thus, when the android crisis broke out over a decade later, Son Gohan, who had long reached the level of Ultimate Gohan, easily killed Android 17 and Android 18 with one hand. The tragic fate of one-armed Gohan was easily averted. As for the last task, helping Lord Frieza grow 10 centimeters taller, I didn't have a good plan for a long time. Was I supposed to follow the original story and wish to Shinron? Just as I was thinking of a solution, the system teleported me again. When I saw what was in front of me, I burst out laughing. The system had sent me to the time when Frieza had just been born. Little Frisia was still sealed inside a frozen demon planet. I dug him out of the ice, loaded him onto a spaceship, and sent him to Earth. Thus, the famous meme that netizens in my past life loved to discuss came true. Old Gohan found young Lord Frisia in the forest. Under Old Gohan's careful care, Frisia got plenty of nutrition and grew to a height of 1.60 m as an adult. He replaced Goku as Earth's guardian. At this point, all 3 prerequisite tasks were successfully completed, and I obtained the Dragon Ball's 10,000 combat power, returning to the real world. The moment the blue light flashed, I felt an overwhelmingly immense power surge from every limb. My gaze settled. The familiar shabby apartment building appeared before me. It was where I lived after crossing over. The watch on my wrist clearly showed the time. There were 30 days left until the dimensional coin shattered and the apocalypse descended. However, no one knew the exact form of the apocalypse, nor the strength of the invading enemies. Though 10,000 Dragon Ball combat power was already on a planet-destroying level, a dimensional invasion could not be handled by fighting alone. If Earth remained fragmented among nations, each fighting for itself would only lead to being picked off one by one. After a brief reflection, I settled on a defense plan: use absolute combat power to intimidate the globe, take control of all destructive forces, make Dragon Country the core defensive hub of Earth, then integrate the powers of the Awakened, and form a guardian army capable of resisting the dimensional invasion. Once the plan was set, I didn't hesitate. I lightly tapped my foot. The sky dance technique made me shoot across the sky like a meteor. My target was the Black Palace in the UK. Tens of thousands of kilometers, I arrived in just a few minutes. The UK's air defense system was useless against me. Countless missiles launched at me, but I just casually waved my hand. A wave of air pressure crushed all the missiles into dust, pressing down directly over the Black Palace. Inside the Black Palace meeting room, Chuanzi was slamming the table and clamoring for sanctions against Dragon Country when the glass curtain wall suddenly shattered with a bang, and I stood hovering in the center of the meeting room. The key around me made every British high-ranking official present gasp for breath. "Who are you? How dare you break into the Black Palace? Do you know this is an act of war?" Chuanzi roared, blustering but terrified, his hands stealthily reaching for the emergency button under the table. I couldn't be bothered to waste words with him. My gaze swept across the dome of the Black Palace, and with a slight opening of my right fist, a condensed key punch blasted out. I didn't deliberately unleash destructive force, yet I precisely shattered the main structure of the entire Black Palace. Amidst the scattering bricks and rubble, not a single person was injured. This was the precise control of 10,000 points of combat power, and also my warning to Britain. As the bricks crashed to the ground, Chuanzi collapsed to the floor, his face pale as paper, unable to utter a single word. Notify the entire world to hand over control of all nuclear facilities to Dragon Country for unified management. My voice, carrying the tremor of ki, rang in everyone's ears. If anyone refuses, everyone present will die. Leaving Britain, I turned and flew toward the Bear Kingdom. On the square of the Kremlin, AP was reviewing the troops. Seeing me approaching through the air, he immediately ordered, "Anti-aircraft fire, open up." The firepower of the Bear Kingdom far surpassed that of Britain, yet it still couldn't touch even a corner of my being. I merely condensed a wisp of ki, flicked it lightly, and shattered the solid dome of the Kremlin. The pressure of ki instantly enveloped the entire square. All soldiers dropped their weapons, and even standing became a luxury. P was a tough nut, but he also knew when to yield. Faced with absolute power, he didn't hesitate for a moment. He immediately agreed to hand over control of the nuclear facilities. "I know you have ambitions and restraint, but in 30 days, Earth will face an unprecedented crisis." I looked at AP and his soldiers. "Nuclear facilities in your hands will only become tools of self-destruction. Dragon Country is the only force capable of protecting Earth." Leaving the Bear Kingdom, I then went to several other nuclear-armed countries. At each stop, I intimidated their leaders with absolute combat power. No country dared to offer the slightest resistance. Not because they didn't want to, but in the face of 10,000 points of combat power, all military force was like a child's toy, utterly fragile. In just 3 days, control of all nuclear facilities worldwide was handed over to Dragon Country. Dragon Country, with the force of thunder, established a global defense command center, unified the allocation of global military resources and personnel, and achieved unprecedented global unification. No bloodshed, no war, only because my 10,000 points of Dragon Ball combat power became the firmest anchor on Earth. And just as Dragon Country unified the world, the spatial fluctuations between heaven and Earth grew stronger. A special energy began to spread across the globe, and countless human bodies started to mutate. Ability users had awakened. These awakened individuals had varying abilities, Researchers from Dragon Country quickly categorized them into 4 major systems. Elemental system, able to control natural elements like fire, water, wind, lightning, and earth. Those with strong combat power could summon heavenly thunder and earthly flames. Enhancement system, physical strength and speed pushed to the extreme, impervious to blades and bullets with the strength to lift a tripod. Mental system, possessing abilities like mind reading, thought control, mental impact, formless and intangible, hard to defend against. Spatial system, capable of teleportation, spatial, slashing and creating spatial barriers, the rarest ability system and the one with the highest tactical value. For a time, ability users appeared all over the world. Some with good intentions voluntarily went to the registration points set up by Dragon Country, wanting to contribute to protecting Earth. Others with malicious intent used their powers to commit crimes, burning, killing, looting, and treating human life like grass. To this, I set one rule: all ability users must register. Those willing to join the ranks of protectors would receive resource support from Dragon Country. If anyone dared to do evil, they would be killed without mercy. To truly form an Earth defense force, I set up ability selection points on every continent, personally overseeing the main selection point in Dragon Country to pick talented ability users with upright hearts. And as the selection was in full swing, a group of evil ability users from abroad just had to run into my crosshairs. In a certain location in Britain, a group of evil awakened individuals, who called themselves free ability users, gathered. The leaders were 4 high-level ability users. Red Bull from the enhancement system, his physical body enhanced to the limit, able to withstand tank shells and single-handedly demolish police stations in 3 cities. Black Witch from the mental system, able to control others' minds, making ordinary people kill each other, with over 1,000 lives on his hands. Shadow Spike from the spatial system, skilled in teleportation ambushes, had once moved silently. They declared they would trample Dragon Country's selection point, reclaim Britain's freedom. They even posted a video on the dark web, openly provoking me, claiming my combat power was just flashy moves. When the news reached the Dragon Country command center, the generals were furious, requesting to send troops to wipe them out. But I waved my hand, stood up, and rose into the air. A bunch of clowns, no need to mobilize a large force. I'll go deal with them myself. On the central square of that British location, Red Bull and his 3 companions stood atop the ruins, followed by hundreds of low-level evil ability users, boldly oppressing ordinary citizens. Grabbing his fist, Red Bull struggled with all his might to break free, but his fist was clamped like iron, motionless. I applied a little force, and with a few crisp cracking sounds, Red Bull's finger bones shattered completely, his screams echoing across the square. I casually flung him out like garbage, sending him crashing into the rubble. He fell unconscious. Seeing that his brother was killed, Yenemo roared and raised a hand, sending a blaze of flames dozens of meters high into the sky, forming a fire dragon that charged at me. The scorching heat warped the surrounding air. I only glanced at it faintly. A gentle surge of my aura formed an invisible barrier. The fire dragon slammed into it, and vanished instantly, not a trace of heat breaking through. I merely condensed a wisp of aura, and flicked it toward Yenemo. The aura thread pierced through his flame barrier and struck his dantian, instantly crippling his elemental ability. Yenemo collapsed to the ground, unable to summon a single spark of fire. His eyes filled with terror. Seeing his 2 companions fall in an instant, the Black Wizard's eyes darkened. He launched a psychic attack in secret, trying to take control of my mind. But his mental power before me was like a firefly compared to the moon. With just a thought, a vast mental pressure enveloped him. The Black Wizard's head felt like it was about to explode. Spitting blood, he collapsed to the ground. His psychic power completely shattered, leaving him a mindless fool. The most cunning Shadow Blade swordsman sensed trouble and tried to teleport away. But his spatial fluctuations were completely exposed under my aura perception of 10,000 combat power. The moment he initiated teleportation, I appeared at his landing point, raised a hand, and grabbed his neck. Lifting him into the air, I said with a cold tone as I met his terrified gaze, "So you're good at sneaking attacks, huh? Do you think you can touch anyone from Dragon Kingdom?" As the words fell, I squeezed lightly, crushing his spatial ability core. Shadow Blade instantly lost his teleportation power. I casually tossed him to the ground. The hundreds of low-level evil ability users, seeing their leaders completely defeated, were scared out of their wits and fell to their knees begging for mercy. But I showed no mercy. A surge of aura swept through, knocking unconscious all the evil low-level ability users, who had committed heinous acts, and handed them over to Dragon Kingdom's military. As for the 4, Red Bull and the others, because of their monstrous crimes, I annihilated them on the spot. This battle lasted only a few minutes, completely uprooting Britain's most rampant evil ability user faction. My combat power thoroughly intimidated all ability users worldwide. After that, evil ability users everywhere either went into hiding, surrendering themselves, or dared not show their faces. Meanwhile, ability users flocked to the various selection points to register. From millions of ability users, I selected 100,000 with outstanding talent and formed the Earth Defense Force. I established 4 legions: Elemental, Enhancement, Psychic, and Spatial. Unified command was given to Dragon Kingdom generals, and I took the role of Supreme Commander. I then began intensive training for the Defense Force, simplifying the cultivation method for aura from the Dragon Ball world, and teaching it to them, allowing their abilities and aura to combine, achieving a qualitative leap in combat power. Just as I was fully immersed in organizing and training the Defense Force, a familiar voice rang out at the entrance of the command center. "My dear big brother, we've been looking for you." I turned around. There stood my younger brother A-Cheng with our parents at the door. Our parents' faces held a hint of unease, while A-Cheng's face was full of presumptuous arrogance. The memories of my previous life flooded back instantly. Our parents' favoritism, my brother's betrayal, the cold gun barrel, and the despair before my death. My eyes instantly turned cold. "What are you doing here?" My tone was flat but carried an undetectable hint of distance. Mother hurried forward, grabbed my arm, and put on a smile. "Azay, you've made it big now, becoming the global commander. Your brother also wants to contribute to protecting the Earth. You've got 10,000 combat power now. Can you split half with him? You're real brothers. What's yours is his." Father chimed in from the side. "Yeah, Azay, A-Cheng is your own brother. Now that you hold great power, it's only right to help him out. With combat power, he can protect us too." A-Cheng even straightened, his back looking utterly justified. "Bro, I know you're strong now, but the apocalypse is coming. One more strong person means one more force. Give me 5,000 points of combat power, and I definitely won't hold you back. Later, I can even help you manage those ability users." Listening to them, I found it extremely ironic. In my past life, they held me down so my brother could choose first. In this life, relying on my own ability to gain 10,000 combat power and become Earth's protector, they still wanted to reap the benefits, even trying to guilt-trip me. I gently pulled my arm free from my mother's hold and looked at A-Cheng with icy eyes. "Can't split the combat power. If you don't want to die, get lost." My words froze the expressions of the 3 on the spot. "Azay, how can you be like this? He's your own brother." Mother's voice shot up, filled with discontent and accusation. "We raised you so big, and now you're successful. So I'm not recognizing my family anymore?" I sneered, my eyes sweeping over my parents and younger brother. "All my life you only had eyes for A-Cheng. The good food and fun things were all his. When I was wronged, you just said I was being difficult. Now that I've gained combat power through my own ability, why should I share it with him?" My words left my parents speechless, and A-Cheng's face turned so dark it looked like it could drip water. He glared at me viciously. "Fine. Since you show no kindness, don't blame me for being unrighteous. If you won't share your combat power with me, I'll find my own way to survive. Just wait and see. When the Chaos World comes, I'll definitely live better than you." With that, he grabbed our parents and stormed out of the command center. After they left, my adjutant wanted to send someone to follow them, but I stopped him. "No need. He can't cause any big trouble." After leaving the command center, A-Cheng used that $10,000 to frantically stockpile supplies worldwide: food, water, medicine, weapons, anything that might be useful in the Chaos World. He hoarded everything, and also bought up all the dimensional energy detection equipment at high prices. He monopolized the market, even starting pre-sales on the dark web, pricing the supplies and equipment at sky-high rates. He hoped to make a fortune from the disaster after the Chaos World arrived, making everyone beg him. He thought his plan was flawless, but he didn't know that, under my perception of 10,000 combat power, his every move was under my control. The reason I didn't stop him was simply that I felt his little scheme was utterly insignificant compared to the impending dimensional invasion. If he could stay within bounds and survive on those supplies, that would be his own skill. But if he dared to use the supplies and equipment to do evil, then I wouldn't mind eliminating another clown. Watching the Earth Defense Force training outside the window, feeling the increasingly intense spatial fluctuations in the sky and Earth, I clenched my fist. 30 days passed in the blink of an eye, and at the moment the dimensional wall shattered, no matter what enemy came, I would use my 10,000 Dragon Ball combat power to protect this planet. Earth is no lamb to be led to slaughter. In the last second before the dimensional wall shattered, the spatial fluctuations between heaven and Earth had reached their peak. On the monitoring screens of the Dragon Nation Global Defense Command Center, Countless red alarms flashed frantically, spatial coordinates around the globe were twisting and collapsing. That faint, indescribable force now turned into tangible black mist, surging out from the cracks in the sky, blotting out the sun. With a thunderous roar that shook the universe, the dimensional wall enveloping Earth shattered like glass. Countless spatial tears ripped open across the globe, with surging chaotic black mist deep within the cracks, and pairs of crimson eyes, polluted by Cthulhu consciousness and devoid of reason. The first person to step out of the crack left me stunned for a full half-minute. It was none other than Luffy in his sun god form, Gear 6. The ultimate awakening of the gum-gum fruit had covered his body in golden light, while the conqueror's haki around him was twisted into black malice by the chaotic mist, and his once clear eyes now held only madness. As soon as he landed, he raised his hand and struck with a monkey god gun, a golden giant fist wrapped in chaotic power, smashing into the Pacific coast. A tsunami thousands of meters high instantly rose, and several coastal cities collapsed under the gale. The elemental core of the Earth Defense Force immediately set up defenses, weaving barriers of fire, water, and wind, but they shattered like paper under Gear 6 Luffy's punch. Dozens of high-level psychics were injured and vomited blood on the spot. Following closely was the Sage of Six Paths from the Naruto universe, floating 10,000 meters in the sky, his chakra stained black by the Cthulhu consciousness. His original 6 halos turned into chaotic whirlpools, and vast chakra raging wildly inside him. With a casual raise of his hand, he summoned dozens of heaven-opening trembling stars empowered by chaotic force, smashing toward Eurasia with world-destroying might. The Dragon Nation's laser defense network activated at full power, but only intercepted a few. The remaining meteors crashed into the Earth, creating craters thousands of meters deep, the ground shaking like doomsday. Next, Belial from the Ultraman universe burst out of the crack in his dark electric pot form, his body swelling to thousands of meters tall. The Death Scythe ray was twisted into a black beam by the chaotic mist, and wherever it swept, mountains collapsed and forests turned to scorched earth. His eyes held only destruction, leaving no survivors in his path. The psychics of the Reinforcement Corps charged desperately, but even warriors with bodies enhanced to the limit turned to ashes instantly under his beam. Thanos from the Marvel Universe, holding a gauntlet set with Infinity Stones, walked slowly out of the spatial rift. His purple skin was covered in a thin layer of chaotic black mist, the light of the Mind Stone twisted into crimson. He snapped his fingers, and all living beings within 100 miles turned to ash instantly. The concept of balance was twisted into destruction by the Cthulhu consciousness. His goal was to completely erase Earth. The last to appear were sea god Tang San and soft-boned Dolua Xiao Wu from the Dolua universe, the couple stepping out of the crack together. Tang San's sea god trident was wrapped in chaotic blue-silver grass, tearing countless ravines into the earth. In just 10 minutes, Earth was plunged into an endless hell. The once well-trained Earth Defense Force, before these Cthulhu-polluted top anime protagonists, seemed so insignificant. Though the 4 Psychic Corps fought desperately, they still retreated step by step, with casualty numbers skyrocketing at a terrifying rate. On the screens of the Dragon Nation Global Defense Command Center, red casualty alerts kept refreshing. The commanders' faces pale, yet they still gritted their teeth and directed the troops. Though the enemies were strong, they were all polluted by the Cthulhu consciousness, losing their original combat wisdom and acting only on instinctive destruction. That was their fatal weakness. The Elemental Corps fell back to the inland, using mountains and rivers as barriers, summoning heavenly thunder and earthly fire to form a chaotic isolation zone, reinforcing the army with military units, activating laser cannons and Gundam mechs. Tying down Belial to buy time, the Spirit Army fully deploys their mental barrier, interfering with the power control of the Six-Path Sage and Tang San. The Space Army moves with me. In an instant, I clear the chaos blue fluorite grass and support every battle line. My voice, vibrating with ki, spreads across every battlefield on Earth. The originally panicked Guardian Army suddenly finds their anchor. Every army immediately follows orders. The one-sided battle finally shows a glimmer of turnaround. I lightly tap my foot, activating Sky Dancing Technique, and appear instantly where Tang San's chaos blue fluorite grass spreads. Condensing ki at my fingertips, I slash out several sharp ki blades. Where they pass, the entangled chaos blue fluorite grass is completely severed. Space-type psychics follow closely, using spatial cuts to utterly annihilate the roots of the blue fluorite grass. Seeing his blue fluorite grass destroyed, a flash of malice appears in Tang San's scarlet eyes. His trident of the sea god, imbued with chaotic power, strikes toward me. The halberd's edge carries the power to tear space apart. I sidestep to dodge, and my fist of ki collides with the trident. A loud bang. The shockwave surges in all directions. Tang San is knocked back several thousand meters. I also use the recoil to create distance, forming a standoff with him. Just then, a disheveled figure rushes out from the direction of the command center, heading straight for Tang San. It is my younger brother, Achin. Somehow, he has breached the Guardian Army's defenses. In his hand, he holds an encrypted metal box, a fawning smile on his face. He shouts to Tang San, "Lord Sea God, I've come to cooperate with you. I know Earth's core defense secrets, and I've obtained the switches for half of the nuclear weapons. As long as you help me take the command center and become Earth's ruler, I am willing to honor you as sovereign." I sneer inwardly. Sure enough, this fool, even at a time like this, is still trying to cut corners. He dares to collude with the enemy to seize power. The metal box is exactly what he stole from the nuclear control room of the command center. He is responsible for the nuclear switch keys. The activation authority for half of the nuclear weapons is now in his hands. Tang San's gaze falls on the metal box in Achin's hand. A hint of amusement flashes in his scarlet eyes. The Bexel contamination has driven him mad for now, stripping him of reason, yet he still retains his lust for power. The power of nuclear weapons is, to him, another tool he can use. Hand over the switch, and I'll spare your life. Tang San's voice is ice-cold, devoid of emotion. Achin is overjoyed. He immediately throws the metal box to Tang San, flattering, "Wise Lord Sea God." Then the Earth Command Center. Before he finishes his sentence, his gaze inadvertently sweeps over Xiao Wu beside Tang San. He is captivated by Xiao Wu's appearance and takes another look, a flash of greed in his eyes. That single glance becomes his death warrant. Tang San turns utterly frigid. The Bexel contamination has driven him mad, his possessiveness twisted to the extreme. Xiao Wu is his reverse scale. Even just an extra glance at her becomes an unforgivable sin. An insignificant ant dares to covet my woman? Tang San's voice falls. In his hand, a pitch-black soul bone instantly coalesced, his very own life soul bone. The so-called 10-year soul bone, now tainted by chaotic power, carries excruciating, gut-wrenching pain. Before Achin can react, the 10-year soul bone has already pierced through his chest. The black chaotic power immediately surges into his body, shredding his internal organs to pieces. He looks down at the soul bone in his chest, his eyes full of disbelief and terror. He tries to say something, but can only spit out a mouthful of black blood. His body goes limp and collapses to the ground, completely lifeless. All of this happens in the blink of an eye. The parents following behind Achin witness this scene firsthand. Their mother breaks down on the spot, wailing and rushing to Achin's corpse. Their father also collapses to the ground, his face pale, speechless. Only now do they finally realize just how foolish and greedy their son, whom they have always favored, truly is. And that greed has ultimately led him to end up dead on the spot. I look at Achin's body, feeling no ripple in my heart, only a trace of indifference. He chose his own path. From the moment he decided to collude with the enemy, such an ending was sealed. After Tang San gets the nuclear switch, he waves his hand casually. Dozens of nuclear weapons rise from their silos, their targets aimed at the various defense lines of the Earth Guardian Army. I narrow my eyes. I appear instantly in the path of the ascending nuclear weapons, condensing my ki around me, to form a massive barrier. All the nuclear weapons slam into the barrier and explode completely, yet my barrier remains unmoved. The blast's aftermath is entirely absorbed, not a single Guardian soldier harmed. Trifling tricks, I say coldly, condensing ki at my fingertips. Multiple energy blasts shot out heading straight for Tang San. Tang San raised his hand to block with the trident of Sea God, but the force of the blasts knocked him back repeatedly. Seeing this, Xiao Wu immediately used her soft bone lock, turning into a black shadow and lunging at me. Hands wreathed in chaotic energy, carrying the power to shatter diamond, I sidestepped to dodge. My ki-infused fist smashed into Xiao Wu's back. She was blasted away, crashing into the chaotic blue-silver grass, spitting blood. While I was locked in fierce battle with Tang San and his wife, a shocking change occurred on the other battlefield. Belial Ultraman's dark arc form. During his fight with the Reinforcement Legion and Mecha Unit, his internal dark power and Cthulhu's indescribable force suddenly erupted in violent repulsion. His body twisted continuously. Pitch-black chaotic mist and dark purple dark power surged wildly inside him. His thousands of meters tall body let out a pained roar. Cthulhu's consciousness tried to completely devour Belial, but it didn't expect that Belial's dark power had already permeated his very bones. His obsession to rule the entire Ultraman universe, even polluted, remained buried deep in his soul. When the chaotic mist tried to completely erase his self-awareness, that obsession finally erupted. The bloodshot madness in Belial's eyes gradually faded, and a glimmer of clarity broke through Cthulhu's pollution. The Ultraman universe and the Land of Light are gone. Belial's voice carried immense anger and pain. His consciousness instantly returned. Images flashed through his mind of the Ultraman universe being completely destroyed by Cthulhu's consciousness, the land of light reduced to scorched earth, all Ultraman warriors fallen. And all of this was caused by Cthulhu's pollution. His anger instantly turned into overwhelming hatred. And now in his eyes, Thanos, also polluted by Cthulhu, was the perfect target for his rage. Scum! Your life is mine. Belial's fury surged, and his body swelled again. The power of his dark arc form burst forth completely. The fourth Shame Mother Beam was no longer polluted by the chaotic mist and reverted to its original dark purple. Carrying earth-shattering momentum, it shot straight at Thanos. Thanos was raising his hand, using the light of the Power Stone, to shatter the Space Legion's spatial barrier. Seeing Belial suddenly attack him, a flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. Then he sneered. The light of the Power Stone exploded, colliding with Belial's fourth Shame Mother Beam. The collision of two top-tier forces produced momentum comparable to the Big Bang. The space at an altitude of 10,000 meters instantly collapsed. Forming a massive black hole, the surrounding chaotic mist was completely devoured. Even Rikudo Rofiai's original God Spear and the Sage of Six Paths Celestial Love Formation were pushed back by the aftershock. Belial and Thanos. The two top-tier combatants began an earth-shattering battle. Belial's dark power was ferocious. Fourth Shame Mother Beam, Dark Tornado, he unleashed one after another, each strike carrying the power to destroy a planet. Thanos relied on the Infinity Gauntlet's gem power. The Power Stone's amplification, the Space Stone's teleportation, the Reality Stone's distortion. He blocked all of Belial's attacks. The two fought until the sky and earth darkened and the sun and moon lost their light. The entire Earth's crust trembled continuously under their battle. Several mountains collapsed, several oceans inverted. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. I instantly saw the battle situation clearly. Belial's clarity had entangled Thanos in a stalemate, and this was my best chance to kill Thanos. In Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet, the Power Stone was the core. As long as I shattered the Power Stone, his combat power would be greatly reduced. Without the Power Stone's amplification, the other gems would be utterly insufficient to oppose me. I immediately gave orders. The Space Legion fully deployed spatial barriers to trap Tang San, his wife, and the Sage of Six Paths. The two reinforced legions, elemental and enhanced, were to entangle Rikudo Rofiai. Then, tapping lightly with my feet, I activated the air dance technique, and instantly turned into a streak of light, heading straight for the battlefield of Belial and Thanos. At this moment, Thanos was locked in a heated battle with Belial. His attention was entirely focused on Belial. He didn't notice my arrival at all. Belial saw me approaching, and a flicker of vigilance appeared in his eyes, but he did not stop me. At this moment, he only wanted to tear Thanos to pieces, even if it meant joining forces with me. Scum! Your time is up, I shouted coldly, gathering all 10,000 points of combat power into my right fist. The light of my ki turned gold. Carrying the power to shatter a planet, it shot straight for Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. Thanos sensed the killing intent from behind and was startled. He immediately tried to teleport away using the Space Stone, but Belial's Dark Tornado entangled him, his body unable to move an inch. He could only hastily block with the Infinity Gauntlet behind him. The light of the Power Stone blazed brightly, trying to withstand my full force. The golden key fist and the light of the Power Stone collided. A thunderous roar echoed across the universe. The light of the Power Stone instantly dimmed, followed by a crisp cracking sound. The Power Stone embedded in the Infinity Gauntlet shattered under my full power. With the Power Stone shattered, the power of the Infinity Gauntlet was instantly crippled. Thanos let out a pained roar. His entire arm was shattered by the force of my ki. Blood poured out. Having lost the Power Stone's amplification, his body, under the combined assault of Belial's dark power, and my ki fist became riddled with holes in an instant. I gave Thanos no chance to catch his breath. I condensed ki at my fingertip, an extremely refined energy blast, carrying a golden glow, speeding straight for Thanos' forehead. This energy blast concentrated all the power of my 10,000 Dragon Ball combat power, enough to shatter a star. Thanos tried to distort the blast with the Reality Stone and interfere with my mind using the Mind Stone, but it was all futile. The energy blast pierced through all his defenses and struck him squarely between the eyes. With a loud bang, Thanos' head exploded, and his body turned to ash under the force of ki. Thus fell the mighty ruler of Marvel, Thanos, wielder of the Infinity Gauntlet. Thanos' death triggered a furious roar from the Cthulhu consciousness within the chaotic black matter, and that indescribable force rippled instantly. All corrupted characters experienced a temporary weakening of their power. The golden light of Gear 6 Luffy dimmed several-fold. The Six Paths Sage's chaotic chakra became disordered, the divine king power of Tang San and his wife trembled slightly, and Belial watched Thanos turn to ash. The anger in his eyes subsided slightly. He glanced at me without a word, then turned and transformed into a dark purple streak of light. Rushing toward the spatial rift in the sky, his target was the source of Cthulhu consciousness deep within the rift. He wanted to demand justice for the fall of the Ultraman universe. I stood 10,000 meters high, watching Belial's departing figure. Then I looked down at the defense force still resisting below and those characters corrupted by the Cthulhu consciousness, a flicker of determination in my eyes. Though Thanos was dead, the battle was far from over. The Cthulhu consciousness still lurked deep in the spatial rift, and those top-tier corrupted characters remained a huge threat to Earth. Seeing this, the exhausted defense force erupted with overwhelming fighting spirit. The power of the 4 major Esper Corps converged once more, engaging in a life-and-death struggle with the corrupted elites. However, with the strongest Thanos now dead, Tang San and the others were no longer a concern. I stood 10,000 meters high, golden ki surging around me like a tide. My voice, carried by the tremor of ki, spread across every battlefield. The Space Corps initiate full domain lockdown. No one is to escape. The Element Reinforcement Corps flank from both left and right. The Mental Corps continuously release mental barriers to disrupt their power control. The 4 Esper Corps responded in unison. Hundreds of thousands of Defense Force soldiers formed a tight battle array, like an inescapable net, trapping the 3 remaining top-tier enemies firmly in the center. The first to act was Gear 6 Luffy. The golden light of his sun god form had dimmed by more than half. The might of his conqueror's haki had also weakened. Still, he tried to unleash his spiritual spear, a golden giant spear wrapped in residual chaotic power, smashing it into the battle array of the Reinforcement Corps. The warriors of the Reinforcement Corps had long since combined ki with physical reinforcement. Dozens of high-level fighters stood shoulder to shoulder, forming a solid barrier of flesh. Meanwhile, the lightning-type espers of the Element Corps summoned heavenly thunder, several thick bolts striking Luffy's fist. The crackling currents instantly stalled his movements. I flickered and appeared behind Luffy, gathering ki in my palm. A gentle yet immensely powerful ki blast struck him in the back, directly dispersing the chaotic power within him and shattering his awakened gum-gum fruit form. Luffy reverted to his normal form. The madness gradually faded from his eyes, but he collapsed to the ground from power exhaustion. Before he could regain consciousness, several spatial shackles locked him down. I had intended to spare his life, but the remnant Cthulhu consciousness within him still struggled. To eliminate any future trouble, I condensed a ki bullet at my fingertip and pierced his forehead. Thus, the protagonist of the One Piece era fell on Earth's dimensional battlefield. Next came the Six Paths Sage Hagoromo. Deprived of the chaotic power's boost, his Six Paths chakra was in utter disarray. The summoning power of the Chibaku Tensei had diminished to less than a tenth. He could only rely on residual chakra to release ordinary ninjutsu. Seizing the opportunity, the elites of the Mental Corps unleashed a full-force mental assault. A tidal wave of invisible mental energy flooded into the Six Paths Sage's consciousness, disrupting his chakra control. The Space Corps continuously cut the space around him, leaving him nowhere to hide. The water and fire powers of the Element Corps wove together into a massive cage, trapping him inside. I walked slowly toward him, watching the founding god of the Naruto universe now howling like a trapped beast, feeling no pity in my heart. The Cthulhu consciousness had contaminated his very origin. Even if the chaotic power were purged, his mind had long been corroded beyond recovery. I raised my hand and flicked, sending out several ki bullets, tearing the Six Paths Sage's body to pieces, along with the chaotic remnant soul inside him. The 6 halos 10,000 meters high vanished completely. With that, the top-tier combat power of the Naruto universe came to an end. Finally, only the couple Tang San and Xiao Wu remained. At this moment, Tang San's sea god tridents, chaotic blue-silver grass had long withered, and his divine king power was dim and weak. Yet the look he gave me still carried resentment and unwillingness, even a hint of hypocritical bitterness. He knew he was at a dead end, but he still tried to deceive the surrounding defense force soldiers with words. I am the sea god of the Dolua universe. How dare you mere ants of earth oppose me? If you let me go, I will grant you eternal life. If you force my hand, I will detonate my own divine king origin and destroy this earth along with me. His words made me coldly laugh. From start to finish, he never realized his own wrongdoing. After being contaminated by the Cthulhu consciousness, he slaughtered wantonly. Now, with his back against the wall, he still tried to seduce others with hollow promises. This hypocritical face was even more nauseating than a pure villain. Tang San, you call yourself the sea god? My voice was icy as I stepped closer to him. You used your divine king power to slaughter recklessly, treating life like weeds. Now you threaten Earth. This behavior just proves you're nothing but a despicable coward. Seeing that his deception failed, a flash of madness crossed Tang San's eyes. He raised his hand to detonate his own divine king origin. But before he could complete the move, I was already in front of him, grabbing his neck with one hand and lifting him into the air. You don't even qualify to self-destruct. A condensed key at my fingertips. Strands of golden key threads drilled into Tang San's body. First, they sealed his divine king origin, then slowly shredded his meridians, destroying all his soul power and divine status. Tang San let out a miserable scream, his body writhing continuously, yet completely unable to move. I didn't kill him immediately, but made him suffer for a long time, paying for what he had done. I raised my hand and waved, and several energy blades chopped down on his limbs, severing his hands and feet. Then I used the residual threads of chaos force to slowly corrode his flesh, letting him feel his internal organs. His screams echoed through the sky and earth, the madness in his eyes gradually replaced by fear, until finally he had no strength left even to speak. Only his eyes remained, staring at me in utter despair. Xiao Wu and Tang San were tortured beyond recognition. A trace of grief flashed in her eyes, and despite her plummeting strength, she turned into a black shadow and lunged at me. The soft-boned rabbit tried to lock her arms around my neck, but her power was as insignificant as a child's in front of me. I casually flicked my hand and sent her flying, crashing heavily to the ground, spitting blood. I glanced at Xiao Wu lying limp on the ground. Her beauty was stunning, and even in such a disheveled state, her elegant features were still hard to overlook. Moreover, the fusion of the divine king power within her and the Cthulhu chaos force was extremely unique. Compared to Tang San, whose origin had already been corrupted, her body still retained a complete form of chaos force. It had extremely high research value. With that thought, I raised my hand and sent an energy blast, striking Xiao Wu's nape, knocking her unconscious, but not taking her life. Meanwhile, Tang San, amidst endless agony, finally breathed his last breath. His body was completely corroded by the residual chaos threads, turning into a pool of black water. Not even a trace of ash remained. He became the most miserable death among all the invading strong ones. With that, all the top-tier anime protagonists contaminated by Cthulhu consciousness were completely eradicated. The dimensional crisis of Earth was temporarily resolved. The chaotic black mist on the battlefield gradually dissipated, sunlight pierced through the clouds, illuminating the devastated land. Hundreds of thousands of Earth defense forces cheered in unison, their voices shaking the heavens and earth, but I felt no joy. Standing high in the sky, looking down at the wreckage below, the sense of crisis grew stronger. The enemies that came this time seemed powerful, but they were only mid-level combatants from various universes. If next time the Cthulhu consciousness attracted the immortal emperors or divine lords from the Eastern Cultivation universe, or even the Three Pure Ones and Donghuang Tai from the Primordial universe, or the gods of destruction and angels from the Dragon Ball universe with my current 10,000 points of Dragon Ball combat power, I wouldn't be able to stop them. The root of the dimensional invasion was always Cthulhu's indescribable force. As long as the origin of Cthulhu remains, Earth and even the entire universe will forever be in crisis. To completely resolve the dimensional crisis, we must find the origin power of Cthulhu and destroy it thoroughly. Only then can the calamity be eliminated forever. I raised my hand and waved. A blast of energy swept the unconscious Xiao Wu in front of me. Then I ordered the defense forces to clean up the battlefield and repair Earth's damage, while I took Xiao Wu and returned to the top-secret research lab of the Dragon Kingdom's Global Defense Command Center. This lab gathered the world's top scientific researchers, equipped with Dragon Kingdom's most advanced research equipment, specialized in studying dimensional energy and Cthulhu chaos force. Xiao Wu was now the best sample for studying the power of Cthulhu. Put her into the energy isolation pod, extract the fusion of chaos force and divine king power from her body, analyze its energy fluctuations, and be sure to find clues related to the origin of Cthulhu. I instructed the head of the research lab. Watching the researchers send Xiao Wu into the specially made isolation pod, countless thin energy probes pierced into her body, beginning to extract energy samples. On the screen, complex energy data kept jumping, the intertwined patterns of chaos force and divine king power slowly unfolding on the display. After arranging everything, I returned to the top floor of the command center, standing alone by the window. Looking at the city slowly recovering outside the window, my mind kept pondering methods to find the origin of Cthulhu. Cthulhu's power comes from chaos, hidden deep within dimensional cracks. Perhaps it's in some corner of the universe, or perhaps in the gaps between dimensional spaces. Finding it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Days passed by, With the efforts of the defense forces, Earth gradually returned to its former state. Destroyed cities began to be rebuilt, injured civilians received treatment, and the four major superpower corps kept expanding and growing stronger. Meanwhile, from the research lab came one encouraging piece of news after another. From the sample of chaos force extracted from Xiao Wu's body, the researchers discovered a unique spatial fluctuation. This fluctuation did not originate from Earth, nor from the Dolua universe, but from the depths of the universe. Moreover, this fluctuation was highly unique, a signature exclusive to Cthulhu's origin power. If we could lock onto the source of this fluctuation, we could find Cthulhu's origin location. Just as the researchers were fully analyzing this spatial fluctuation, attempting to locate Cthulhu's origin, a faint but extremely firm dark energy signal came from the depths of the universe, directly surging into the energy receiving device of the command center. This energy signal carried the unique dark fluctuations of the Ultraman universe, familiar yet unfamiliar. I instantly recognized it as Belial's power. I immediately ordered the technicians to decode the energy signal. On the screen, a blurry image slowly unfolded. In the image, Belial's Dark Emperor form was already in tatters, his body covered with gruesome wounds, surrounded by surging chaotic black mist. And in front of him was a massive, the chaotic core emitting an indescribable power that was the origin of Cthulhu. Belial's voice carried intense pain and anger. Transmitted through the energy signal, the Cthulhu origin was located at the Nebula Eye deep within the universe. I have exhausted all my power to lock its coordinates. The dark power will soon dissipate. Destroy it for me, avenge the Ultraman universe. At the end of the image, Belial let out a mournful roar, his body turning into a dark purple streak of light charging toward the Cthulhu origin, only to be instantly torn apart by its chaotic tentacles, completely dissipating into the universe. And the coordinates of the Cthulhu origin, left behind with the last shred of his dark power, were clearly displayed on the screen. The Nebula Eye deep in the universe, that was the densest gathering of nebulae in the entire cosmos. It was also the region with the most intense spatial fluctuations. Belial, the dark giant of the Ultraman universe, had been arrogant and evil all his life. Yet, at the final moment of his life, to avenge the Ultraman universe and to stop Cthulhu's corruption, he exhausted all his strength, left behind the coordinates of the Cthulhu origin, and became a hero who saved the universe. Watching Belial dissipate on the screen, I felt a myriad of emotions, then a trace of determination flashed in my eyes. The analysis results of the chaotic power fluctuations in the lab perfectly matched the coordinates left by Belial. The location of the Cthulhu origin was finally locked. Without delay, I immediately summoned the high-level leaders of the Earth Guard forces and arranged Earth's defense affairs. I will journey to the depths of the universe to destroy the Cthulhu origin. During the time I am away, the four of you will jointly command the command center and lead the four extraordinary power legions. If there is a new dimensional invasion, immediately activate the highest defense level and rely on Earth's training laws to defend Earth to the death. The four legion commanders replied in unison. Their eyes were full of determination. I nodded, my aura never fading. Unleashing the Bukajutsu to its fullest, my figure turned into a golden streak of light shooting straight into the sky. Passing through Earth's atmosphere, I entered the vast universe. The depths of space were pitch black. Countless nebulae slowly rotated before my eyes, and asteroid belts drifted through the cosmos. Various cosmic rays weaved through. My speed was extreme, traversing one nebula after another. Crossing asteroid belt after asteroid belt, I sped toward the direction of the Nebula Eye. After flying for who knows how long, the nebulae ahead grew denser, colorful clouds intertwined together. Forming a giant eye as if wide open, this was the Nebula Eye. And at the center of the Nebula Eye, a massive chaotic black mist slowly rotated. Within the black mist, countless thick tentacles kept thrashing, each tentacle covered in hideous eyes, radiating a heart-stopping, indescribable power. The surrounding space was corroded by the black mist, twisted into eerie arcs. This was the Cthulhu origin. As I approached the Nebula Eye, a powerful mental pollution rushed toward me, trying to invade my sea of consciousness and drive me mad. I immediately concentrated and calmed my mind. Resisting the mental pollution, the Cthulhu origin was more powerful than I had imagined. Its power was not pure chaotic power, but an indescribable force that fused space, mind, destruction, and other powers. If an ordinary strong person approached, they would be mentally polluted in an instant, becoming part of the chaos. I hovered in the void, gazing at the Cthulhu origin before me, pondering a way to destroy it. With my combat power of 10,000, if I launched a direct assault, I might injure it. But I could not completely destroy it. Instead, it would provoke it, causing it to release even stronger chaotic power, polluting the entire universe. To completely destroy the Cthulhu origin, only one power could help. That was one of the most powerful techniques in the Dragon Ball world, the Spirit Bomb. The Spirit Bomb can gather the energy of all living beings in the universe, forming a devastating energy sphere. Its power depends on connecting one's own ki with the space of the entire universe, beginning to release gentle waves of energy, communicating with all living beings in the universe. Through consciousness, I am the guardian of Earth. At this moment, the Cthulhu origin deep in the universe is constantly corrupting our home, trying to destroy the entire universe. I need your strength. Gather your energy and join me in destroying the Cthulhu origin to protect our universe. My consciousness, carried by the energy waves, spread to every corner of the entire universe, reaching every planet with life. At first, the beings of the universe were filled with vigilance and doubt. But when they sensed the chaotic threat brought by the Cthulhu origin and felt the determination and sincerity in my heart, living beings on planet after planet began to release their energy. Strands of faint energy converged from all corners of the universe. A colorful torrent of energy interwove into a giant band of light across the universe. Slowly gathering in my palm, I could clearly feel the power in my hand growing stronger and stronger. That was the hope of all life in the universe, the will of the entire cosmos. I slowly opened my eyes. The spirit bomb in my palm grew larger and larger, eventually forming a massive orb of light tens of thousands of kilometers in diameter. It radiated dazzling light, illuminating the pitch-black universe, and even the chaotic black mass of the Eye of the Nebula was forced back a few steps by this radiance. Cthulhu, your doom has arrived, I roared, exerting force with both arms, and hurled the spirit bomb, which gathered the life force of the entire universe, fiercely toward Cthulhu's origin. The colossal spirit bomb, carrying the power of the whole universe, shot toward the chaotic black mass like a meteor. Cthulhu's origin seemed to sense the fatal danger, and countless chaotic tentacles flailed wildly, trying to block the spirit bomb's advance. But before the spirit bomb, which had gathered the life force of the entire universe, those tentacles were like paper. They were instantly torn apart, dissolving into wisps of black matter. The spirit bomb slammed violently into Cthulhu's origin and core, emitting a deafening roar that shook the entire universe. The brilliant light instantly engulfed the Eye of the Nebula, and the chaotic black mass, within the radiance of the spirit bomb, slammed violently into Cthulhu's origin and core, emitting a deafening roar that shook the entire universe. The brilliant light instantly engulfed the Eye of the Nebula, and the chaotic black mass, within the radiance of the spirit bomb, was torn apart and purified bit by bit. Cthulhu's origin let out a piercing shriek, an indescribable sound of agony and fury, but before the life force of the entire universe, its resistance proved utterly feeble. The massive chaotic core, under the bombardment of the spirit bomb, shattered piece by piece, eventually dissolving into faint wisps of black matter. Dispersed across the universe, the chaotic fluctuations of the Eye of the Nebula vanished completely, and the twisted space around it began to return to normal. The colorful nebula regained its former calm. Cthulhu's origin power had been utterly destroyed. I floated in space, watching the dissipating chaotic black mass, and let out a long sigh of relief. The spirit bomb in my palm gradually faded, and the ki within my body was nearly depleted, leaving me feeling exhausted all over. Yet my heart was filled with relief. The Cthulhu contamination of this universe had finally been completely cleansed, and the dimensional rift began to slowly heal. Earth, and even the entire universe, had finally escaped the danger of Cthulhu. But just as I was about to return to Earth, the corner of my eye caught sight of faint chaotic fluctuations still emanating from every corner of the universe, coming from different space-time rifts. These fluctuations did not originate from this universe but from other parallel universes. My heart sank, and I instantly understood. Cthulhu's power does not exist in only one universe. It pervades all parallel universes. What I had destroyed was merely the Cthulhu origin of this universe, while other parallel universes remained tainted by Cthulhu's power, still suffering dimensional invasions, with countless beings struggling amidst the slaughter of chaos. If left unchecked, before long, the Cthulhu origins of other universes would, through space-time rifts, invade this universe again. Then all our efforts would be in vain. I stood in the cosmos, gazing at those slowly spinning space-time rifts, my resolve growing firmer. Since I had destroyed the Cthulhu origin of this universe, since I possessed 10,000 points of Dragon Ball combat power, since I could gather the life force of the universe, then it was my duty to save those parallel universes polluted by Cthulhu. Earth's defenses were already secure. The 4 great ability core could protect Earth, while I would set out on a cross-universe journey through space-time to cleanse the remaining Cthulhu contamination and protect more cosmic beings. Without a moment's hesitation, I moved, speeding toward one of the most stable space-time rifts. In the distance, this space-time rift connected to an unknown parallel universe, with no coordinates, no direction, everything random, but I was fearless. The moment I passed through the space-time rift, a dense, pure immortal energy rushed toward me, completely different from the key of the Dragon Ball universe or the chaotic power of Cthulhu. This immortal energy was pure and profound, carrying the unique charm of an Eastern cultivation world. I landed slowly, finding myself in a lush forested mountain range. The air was thick with immortal energy, and strange flowers and rare herbs covered the ground. In the distance, an ancient village nestled in the valley. The inhabitants were not human, but sturdy figures covered in brown fur, bear people. They wielded stone axes, and faint fluctuations of immortal power emanated from them as they busied themselves in the village. On a large boulder nearby, 3 ancient characters were carved, Bear People Village. My heart tightened, and I immediately understood. The first parallel universe I had crossed into was the world of the Bear People cultivation legend. At that moment, at the end of the valley, a dense black chaotic mist was slowly rising from a small, underground dimensional rift, spreading toward the direction of the Bear People immortal village. Cthulhu's contamination had already invaded this cultivation world. A new battle of protection was about to begin.